You're gonna tell the feds everything I want them to know, and you're gonna get everything from them that I wanna know.
Handle D-Mac, and we're gonna do it in a way that doesn't get back to Tommy.
In between two devils.
Call your boss.
If I do this, I'm a dead man.
You 100% dead if you don't.
What's going on, YouTube, man? We back at it again with another video here, bro. In this episode of Force, the boy Tommy tripping, bro. The boy Tommy got a lot of shit going on, man. I ain't gonna lie. Tommy my dog, but he was tripping this episode, bro. So if you like the content that's being pushed out here, bro, like, comment, subscribe. Let's get on to this review. Episode, bro, we got Diamond and, Tommy dumping Vic head in some water, basically telling him, like, look, man, either you play both sides or you out of here, bro. So, Vic was, a little iffy at first, but, he ended up agreeing. And, Tommy ended up sending him out there and telling him to, be on standby whenever I call everything that was going on with the Albanians. And basically, Tommy had the thought in his head. He said, yo, let's make a supply and demand problem, essentially, for the Albanians, and they'll come running to us. So basically what they thought we're going to do is, we're going to torch Miguel's warehouse and, get his supplies off of the map. So then that way the Albanians, they'll come running to us. Diamond agreed, and he said, let's do it. Coming over here to Claudia and Vic. Vic basically telling Claudia, like, look, man, you got to work with me and Tommy. You're going to be running like a Viagra triangle with CBI, and you're going to give up the clubs. Claudia really wasn't fucking with it at first because, she want Tommy gone and Shanti gone. So that's more money in their pocket, so she wasn't really fucking with it at first. And, Tommy sent Vic here because that was the first order that, Tommy had gave Vic, was to go talk to her sister just to get everything, in motion. She ended up agreeing, she ended up playing ball, and, she ended up telling Vic, like, you Tommy's bitch now? And, Vic looked at her, gave her a little smirk, shook his head, and told her, like, look, you're going to be somebody's bitch in here sooner or later. And basically told her, hey, watch your back in here. Now, coming over here to Diamond and Tommy, they finally make it to Miguel's warehouse with all the gasoline and shit. And, basically, they basically just arsoned this motherfucker. Like, they just burnt this motherfucker down to the ground because, like I said earlier in the clip that I showed you before, basically they said, look, if we destroy Miguel's supply, Albania's going to have to come running to us. And I ain't gonna fake this. This was the I like this scene right here. It felt like some shades and glitters of that OG power. I ain't gonna lie. Coming over here to dumbass D-Mac, he basically telling Marshall, like, look, I need to do something big to get back in CBI. And Marshall telling this nigga, like, man, didn't you just get fucked up with some shit that just went wrong, bro? Like, lay low. And D-Mac, man, he's saying, like, look, that shit ain't work last time. And I'm thinking in my head, like, yeah, this nigga's a fucking jackass. This nigga don't learn, bro. So then we end up hearing a knock from Tommy at the door. So Tommy ended up knocking at the door, and he basically found D-Mac inside the closet, and he basically telling D-Mac, like, look, man, like, you need to find your way in life. You don't need to be in the game. He not trying to make the same mistake, that he did with Tariq. But D-Mac ain't really trying to hear that shit, man. He like, man, fuck that shit. I'm not cutting off my dreads to go to that weak ass school. I want to be back in CBI. And Tommy basically telling him, like, look, man, as long as I'm in this shit, you out this shit. So the boy D-Mac ended up telling Tommy, like, look, I don't want to be in CBI. And, Tommy ended up, going with it, having more of a pep talk, and ended up leaving. So Marshall, like, man, you really went out of CBI? And, D-Mac, man, like, hell no, man, I got to do a boss move that's going to want them to get me back into CBI. Having the same conversation they had before Tommy walked up in the building, and we know D-Mac not going to learn from this shit. Coming over here to Stacy, she just got filed for divorce papers from Detective DeFranco. And, basically, man, he feel like she pushed the marriage to the side, and she essentially, pushed her job and her career in this perfect image, above everything else. And we can definitely see that in the later on clips. So we were going to definitely come back to this conversation right here regarding these divorce papers between Detective DeFranco and Stacey Marks. So coming over to Shanti and Jannar, they was talking about the whole game plan with, D-Mac, and, Jannar ended up telling her, like, look, I put the money in the little nigga pockets, basically, and just, sent him on his way. We know that Shanti want to end up meeting Che, and she said, essentially with that being done, Diamond and Tommy got to be gone. And she ended up asking Jannar, like, do you still on board for taking out your brother, right? And Jannar was making that face, looking around. He's like, yeah, babe, yeah. But we know deep down inside, man, the boy Jannar do not want to go against his brother, man. So coming over here to Mireya and Tommy, we see they end up getting a slice of pizza, and the Marquez cartel had came and basically tried to end him. This is the second time in a row now, so we know that, the Marquez cartel is essentially, bro, they ain't fucking around, bro, because the 2 days in a row spinning the block, bro, is insane. And, one of the affiliates ended up getting hit, and, Mireya wanted to call 911, but, Tommy said, fuck that, we're going to take him back to the crib, and, you just patch him up. So everybody meeting up back at Tommy's house, Tommy was basically, telling everybody, like, look, everybody stay strapped up because, they coming at us, hard essentially. Diamond was like, man, are you sure this not Miguel and his crew for the shit that we did at the fucking warehouse? And we seen the tattoos on the dudes. We know this is Marquez Cartel. And he said, look, I want extra protection on Mireya. And Jannard wasn't fucking with that. He made like a little smirk. And Tommy said, look, you only got one job. One job was to find the shooter. And that's all you gotta do. Nothing else, nothing more, nothing less. And he said, just because you came in my house this time don't mean it's open everybody to come back. And I'm like, man, we are slowly building up to this tension, even though it's been a lot of tension, but the tension this season, these 2 episodes have been crazy. So coming over here to Stacey Marks and Claudia, Claudia ended up Stacey Marks and told her, like, look, I can work with you on Tommy. I'm not giving you nothing on the Marquez Cartel, but they'll kill me in here. And Claudia working with Tommy with the clubs and shit like that. So she can get more intel on him like that. And basically Stacey, she agreed with her, but she said, look, if any of this shit goes sideways, she gonna personally make sure that she gets sent to a way far worse prison than one that she in right now. So coming over here, Tommy and Diamond, we got Diamond and Tommy talking about everything that happened in the last 2 days, with the hits and all that shit like that. And Tommy got the idea, like, man, what if we took out the King? What if we took out Ortega? Diamond said it was a good idea. Tommy ended up hitting up Vic so he can go end up talking to Stacey Marks. So coming over here to Stacey and Vic, basically, Vic ended up telling Stacey, everything that happened, in the last 2 days with the Marquez Cartel and everything like that. And, he ended up telling Stacey, like, look, I think Ortega's going to be next. And Stacey ended up saying, hey, it's not going to be possible to get to him if I move him. So I'm thinking in my head, is this what Tommy told him and and he like flipped it another way? Or is this like word for word what Tommy told Vic to tell Stacey, for the plans to to align together? So that's an interesting, point that I was, kind of like, like in between on this scene. Coming over to Jannard and Diamond, we know they were talking about the whole shit that happened when, Miguel and burning the whole warehouse down. Jannard was pissed off, but like, he didn't have no knowledge of this shit. And, they were talking about the whole D-Mac and Tommy situation, because fucking Diamond wants, Jannard to, handle D-Mac. And Jannard like, man, look, bro, if we do something to that little nigga, Tommy gonna blow all this shit to the motherfucking ground if we do this shit. And Diamond like, man, look, we gonna handle that little nigga eventually, bro. And I just feel like, bro, like, man, I fuck with Diamond, but he moving real crazy, man. Little do he know, bro, Jannard plotting on offing you game. You don't even know. So it's just like, man, Jannard is he playing triple size, he playing all type of size, dog. So Miguel ended up pulling up on Tommy. Miguel already knew that Tommy was behind all the shit that happened at the warehouse, with, the fire and stuff like that. And he basically told Tommy, like, look, man, you gonna pay for this shit, motherfucker. And he told Tommy, like, man, what you gonna do if I tell Mireya about the shit you've been doing? And he also said, Tommy told him, like, man, what you gonna do if I tell Che about you losing a whole warehouse full of bricks? And Tommy ended up walking away. And the one dude over there, the one affiliate was about to, pop him, but he said, no, we gonna wait. You gotta do this low key. So coming over to D-Mac and Marshall, just like D-Mac said earlier in the the episode, he said he had a score to hit, which is his gambling place. I don't know if this is the same gambling place, from last week's episode where D-Mac was looking on like TikTok or some shit like that. But D-Mac ended up running up in there. He ended up hitting fucking Marshall with the gun and shit, to make it look real. And Marshall was pissed off about that shit. And he ended up holding his gun to this one, like, I think he was Chinese. He ended up holding a gun to him. He had like a tattoo on the side of his neck. So I'm thinking in my head, will this come back to hunt D-Mac? And could he possibly be a part of the Marquez Cartel? Like, is it possible? Could he possibly be a part of that and just come back to hunt D-Mac with all the shit that's going on with Tommy and the whole CBI shit? So coming over to Jannard and D-Mac, Jannard basically came in and just told him, like, look, bro, your service is not really needed no more, honestly, bro. Just lay low, do what you do, bro. Everything going on, bro. Basically, the same thing that Diamond told him last episode. D-Mac wasn't really fucking with it because, bro, D-Mac want to be in the streets. He want to feel like he's wanted. Just how Tariq felt in them last couple seasons of OG Power. So coming over to Tommy and Diamond wanted to go talk to the Albanians because, everything that happened with Miguel, when they destroyed his warehouse with all this product and shit like that. So now the Albanians want to, basically want to go fuck with CBI. And now they got the opportunity to, he was just wondering, will Miguel be a problem? Tommy ended up saying, no, you only got to worry about him. Everything cool. So they end up agreeing. And We gonna have to see what Miguel gonna do to retaliate to this. So coming over here to the boy D-Mac, man, he ended up pulling on the one home girl that he was trying to highlight, the last couple seasons. And, he got a bite from the lick that he ended up hitting, with Marshall and himself. And, he ended up pulling up on her, just letting her know, like, look, man, I ain't mean to, really stand you up. I just got a lot of shit going on. And, all that sound cool, but it's like, bro, D-Mac, bro, you got hella shit going on right now out here in these streets, bro. Like, you need to be laying low, like everybody been telling this nigga to do. But he ain't gonna learn until some shit pop off and he gonna be looking crazy. So now coming over to Tommy and Diamond, they finally got the intel from Jannard. He got the drop on the shooter. So now they got all this information right now. Tommy basically ordered him to call Ortega from the prison cell on the burner phone. So Tommy ended up getting on the phone with Ortega, and he basically told Ortega, like, look, now that your man's missed, we gonna just call you and we gonna let you know that we ain't fucking around and we gonna take this nigga out on the phone. And Ortega pissed about this shit. He's just saying, like, look, everybody in that coalition, y'all niggas is dead, y'all niggas is done. And now this one mistake right here that Tommy made can fuck everything up. So coming over here to Stacy and Detective DeFranco, they have a whole talk about the whole divorce thing. Stacy telling them, like, man, you just, you can't really just give up on all these years of marriage over one case. And DeFranco, he essentially just fed up with everything. He asked her, was this about the whole mayor campaign thing? And, she essentially couldn't even say nothing. She just walked up, didn't say anything. He essentially tired of the shit. He tired of, being put last and his marriage not being the focal point of what it is. Coming over here to the boy Vic, we know that he do got a new love interest, and her name is Ray. He ended up meeting her at a lounge and shit, just mingling around and just ended up talking to her, creating conversation. This will be his new love interest, and once again, her name is Ray. Coming over to Miguel, we all know that Miguel basically want Tommy head on the platter. So, he ended up hiring a hitter. We definitely gonna probably see next episode of maybe that hit getting put out on Tommy, and this is probably why that Tommy ended up having Ray all them guns. And also the shootout that's going on with the Marquez cartel. Craziest part about everything that happened this episode was this shit right here. This nigga Tommy walked in this motherfucker with the head of the shooter that tried to take, him out earlier in the episode. And I'm looking at this shit. I'm like, this man Tommy is fucking tripping, dog. So one of the affiliates that was in the coalition, he basically told Tommy, like, look, man, they're the fucking cartel. They're gonna come after everybody that's in this coalition. And that's exactly what Ortega said. And Tommy trying to de-escalate the situation, like, look, man, we set an example to show these motherfuckers that we ain't to be fucked with, essentially. And I'm getting everybody like a little pep talk to everybody that was in the coalition. He's told them, like, look, man, from Chicago, we're not gonna let no motherfuckers just come in this bitch that's outsiders and just take over our shit. And, after everybody had left, Jannard got fed up, just with Tommy and just the way he just been talking to him, disrespecting him like he ain't been running CBI. Jannard ended up telling Tommy, like, look, man, we in all this dumb shit because of the shit that you've been doing, the shit that you've been fucking up and not handling. And essentially, Diamond agreed with, Jannard, and, he basically said, like, we are in some kind of sticky situations off of the shit you're not handling and the shit that you, been fucking up. And Diamond said, like, look, man, we're not losing our shit for nobody. The shit that we built, we're not losing this shit for nobody. When I seen this scene right here, when everybody essentially left Tommy in the meeting, he was in there by himself, and I seen this head, I'm like, man, this is foreshadowing what the season is gonna be like for Tommy. Back real big against the wall, and essentially ain't nobody gonna want to work on him, and the majority gonna want to take him out for all of the dumb shit he got doing right now. So going over to the last scene, the boy Chavo ended up getting taken out by the Marquez cartel for retaliation for the shit that Tommy had did to the shooter on the phone with Ortega. And we already know that Chavo already wasn't really fucking with this whole shit that Tommy was doing, because he told him that was in the meeting. And the next scene, he ended up getting clipped. So I feel like this is gonna be more and more reasons why nobody really essentially is going to want to fuck with Tommy. With all that being said, we coming to the end of this review. Episode 2 was way better than episode 1, and we're real excited to see what this third episode is going to be like. I feel like this is going to be a great season. So if you like the content that I'm pushing out here, like, comment, subscribe. I'm Los, and I'm signing out.